You never forget the first time someone steals your idea. It's not just the betrayal, it's the way the room goes quiet, the way your heart drops, and the way you realize that trust is a currency some people will spend without a second thought. My name is Maya Ellis, and if you'd told me a year ago that my biggest rival would be the woman I once called my friend, I would have laughed. But that's how these stories always start, isn't it? With someone you never saw coming. I'd been at the company for 6 years, working my way up from intern to project lead. I was the one who stayed late, who fixed the messes, who made the impossible look easy. I didn't play office politics. I thought my work would speak for itself. But in the world of corporate ambition, silence is just an invitation for someone else to take the mic. Her name was Vanessa. She was new, sharp, and charming in that way that made people want to be on her side. We'd hit it off at first. Late nights brainstorming, coffee runs, and inside jokes about the chaos of our department. I thought we were a team. I thought we had each other's backs. The project that changed everything started as a scribble in my notebook. A new product line, something bold and risky, but exactly what the company needed to break out of its slump. I spent weeks refining the pitch, market research, financial projections, and even a prototype. Vanessa was there for all of it, offering feedback, cheering me on, and promising she'd help me make it shine. The day of the big meeting, I was nervous, but excited. The CEO, Mr. Carter, was notoriously hard to impress, but I knew this idea could change everything. I walked into the boardroom, notes in hand, ready to present. But before I could even open my mouth, Vanessa stood up. "I'd like to start with something I've been working on," she said, flashing that perfect smile. And then, slide by slide, she presented my idea, my research, my words, my vision. I sat there, frozen, as she spun my work into her own story. The board nodded, impressed. Mr. Carter leaned forward, asking questions I'd prepared for, but Vanessa answered with the confidence of someone who'd lived in my head for weeks. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout the truth. But I didn't. I just sat there, numb, as the meeting moved on. No one looked at me. No one noticed the betrayal. Not even Vanessa, who avoided my eyes as she basked in the praise. That night, I called my sister. She listened as I vented, her voice calm and steady. She said, "You know what you have to do. You can't let her get away with this." I wanted to fight back. I wanted to expose her, but I knew how these things worked. If I went to HR, it would be my word against hers. If I confronted her, she'd just deny it. And if I made a scene, I'd be labeled difficult, the kiss of death for any woman trying to climb the ladder. So I did what I do best. I got to work. I started documenting everything: emails, drafts, meeting notes, even the original sketches in my notebook. I reached out to colleagues who'd seen us working together and asked them to write down what they remembered. I built a timeline, a paper trail, and a case so airtight even Vanessa couldn't talk her way out of it. But I knew evidence alone wouldn't be enough. Vanessa was popular, and she'd already started spinning the story her way. I needed to be smart, I needed to be patient, and most of all, I needed to make sure that when the truth came out, there would be no way for anyone, not even the CEO, to look away. The next few weeks were torture. Vanessa was everywhere, leading meetings, getting praise, and even hinting at a promotion. Every time I saw her, I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. But I kept my head down, kept working, and kept building my case. Then one afternoon, I overheard Vanessa talking to another manager. She was bragging about her idea, about how she'd finally found a way to stand out. "Maya's smart, but she doesn't know how to play the game," she laughed. "You have to be ruthless if you want to win." That was the moment I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I realized Vanessa wasn't just ambitious, she was dangerous. And if I didn't stop her, she'd do it again. To me, to someone else, to anyone who got in her way.
I decided then and there, I wasn't just going to get my credit back. I was going to make sure Vanessa's downfall was something no one in the company would ever forget. I spent the next few days watching Vanessa work the office like it was her personal stage. She was everywhere, laughing with the executives, charming the board, and dropping hints about her vision for the company's future. The more she basked in the spotlight, the more invisible I felt. But I also noticed something else: cracks in her story. She was good at selling herself, but she didn't know the details like I did. When people asked about the technical side, she'd deflect or give vague answers. When the CEO pressed her for specifics, she'd promise to circle back or get the team on it. I realized that Vanessa's power was built on a foundation of sand. She'd stolen my idea, but she couldn't execute it. She didn't have the depth, the history, or the relationships to make it real. And that was my opening. I started quietly helping the team assigned to the project. I offered advice, answered questions, and fixed problems before they could become disasters. I never took credit, never made a scene. I just made sure the work got done and that the people who mattered knew who was really behind it. At the same time, I kept building my case. I gathered more evidence, more witness statements, and more proof that the idea was mine. I even found an old email chain where Vanessa had asked me to explain the concept one more time, claiming she was still a little lost. I saved everything, organizing it into a file I kept on a password-protected drive. But I knew I needed more than just a paper trail. I needed a moment, a public, undeniable moment where Vanessa's lies would unravel in front of everyone. I started looking for opportunities, watching for the perfect time to strike. That chance came sooner than I expected. The CEO announced a company-wide town hall to showcase the new product line. Vanessa was set to present, and the whole company would be watching, including the board, the investors, and every manager who'd ever doubted me. The week before the town hall, Vanessa was a bundle of nerves. She came to me, desperate for help. "Maya, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I could really use your support on this. You know the details better than anyone." I almost laughed at the irony, but I kept my face neutral and agreed to help. I spent hours coaching her, walking her through the technical specs, and even writing talking points for her slides. All the while, I made sure to document every interaction, every draft, every note, and every email. The night before the town hall, I barely slept. I kept replaying the plan in my head, making sure I hadn't missed anything. I knew this was my shot, not just to clear my name, but to show everyone who Vanessa really was. The day of the town hall, the office buzzed with excitement. People filled the auditorium, the board took their seats, and the CEO stood at the podium beaming with pride. Today, we're unveiling a project that will define our future. Vanessa, the floor is yours. Vanessa took the stage, all confidence and charm. She started her presentation, running through the slides I'd helped her build. But as she got deeper into the technical details, she started to stumble. She mixed up key terms, glossed over important data, and fumbled through the Q&A. The audience shifted in their seats, whispers spreading like wildfire. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The CEO asked a pointed question, one I'd planted with him earlier, knowing Vanessa wouldn't have the answer. She froze, stammered, and finally admitted, "I'm not sure. I'll have to check with Maya." The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. I stood up, heart pounding, and calmly explained the answer, citing the research, the data, and the process behind the idea. I could see the realization dawning on faces around the room. Vanessa hadn't just borrowed my work, she'd built her entire reputation on it. After the presentation, the CEO called me into his office. He was furious, not at me, but at Vanessa. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" he demanded. I handed him the file I'd been building for weeks. "I wanted to be sure. I wanted you to see the truth for yourself." He spent the next hour going through the evidence, his expression growing darker with every page. When he finished, he looked at me with something like respect. "You handled this with more integrity than most people would. Leave this with me. I'll take it from here." I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. Vanessa's downfall had begun, and this time, everyone would see it. The fallout from the town hall was immediate. By the next morning, the office was buzzing with rumors. People who had once flocked to Vanessa's side now kept their distance, whispering in corners and glancing at me with new respect, or maybe just curiosity. I kept my head down, focused on my work, but inside I felt a storm of emotions, relief, vindication, and a cautious hope that maybe, finally, the truth was winning. Vanessa, on the other hand, was unraveling. She tried to regain control, calling impromptu meetings and sending out long defensive emails to the team. She blamed miscommunication, claimed she'd been misunderstood, and even tried to take credit for my calm explanation at the town hall. But the damage was done. The CEO had seen her stumble, the board had seen her flounder, and the team had seen who really knew the work. A few days later, the CEO called another meeting, this time just the three of us. Him, Vanessa, and me. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Vanessa tried to start with an apology, but the CEO held up a hand to stop her. "I've reviewed everything," he said, his voice cold and measured. "The evidence is clear. Maya, this was your idea, your work, your vision. Vanessa, you not only took credit for something that wasn't yours, but you also put the company at risk by not understanding the details." Vanessa's face went pale. She tried to protest, but the CEO didn't let her finish. "You're being removed from the project effective immediately. Maya, I want you to take over as lead. You'll report directly to me." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I dreamed of this moment, but I'd never imagined it would come so suddenly, so decisively. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Vanessa sat in stunned silence, her eyes darting between us. The CEO turned to her one last time. "You're lucky Maya handled this with integrity. If she'd gone public, this could have been a scandal. I suggest you take some time to reflect on what kind of colleague you want to be." The meeting ended, and Vanessa left the room without another word. Word spread fast. By the time I stepped back into the office, eyes followed Vanessa as she hurried to her desk. Whispers chased her down the hall, colleagues pretending to type while sneaking glances. For months she was untouchable, the star everyone wanted to orbit. Now no one wanted to be seen in her shadow. Her silence was louder than any apology. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I threw myself into the project, working with a renewed sense of purpose. The team rallied behind me, grateful for clear direction and honest leadership. We hit every milestone, solved every problem, and delivered a product that exceeded everyone's expectations. The CEO made a point of recognizing my work at every opportunity. He invited me to strategy sessions, asked for my input on new initiatives, and even mentioned my name in a company-wide email celebrating the project's success. For the first time, I felt truly seen, not just as a hard worker, but as a leader. But the real victory came in the small moments. Colleagues who had once ignored me now sought my advice. Junior team members asked to be mentored. Even some of the executives who had doubted me before started to listen when I spoke. The culture of the company began to shift, slowly but noticeably, toward one that valued honesty, collaboration, and real talent over empty charm. As for Vanessa, she was reassigned to a minor project in another department. She kept her job, but her influence was gone. The people who had once followed her now kept their distance, wary of getting caught in her wake. She avoided me, and I let her. I had nothing left to prove. One evening, as I was leaving the office, the CEO stopped me in the hallway. "You know, Maya, I've seen a lot of people come and go in this company, but I've rarely seen someone handle betrayal with as much grace and strength as you did. You turned a setback into a turning point, not just for yourself, but for all of us." I thanked him, feeling a deep sense of pride. I knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new rivals, and new tests of character. But I also knew that I was ready for whatever came next.
With Vanessa out of the picture, the office felt different. Occasionally, I'd catch sight of her in meetings, trying to contribute, her voice thinner than before. Where once people leaned in, now they barely looked up. Her words hung in the air and fell flat, met with polite nods and quick subject changes. It was like watching a spotlight dim until nothing but the outline remained. The tension that had once hung in the air was gone, replaced with a cautious optimism. People started to open up, sharing ideas more freely, collaborating without fear of being undercut. I made it my mission to nurture that spirit. I set up weekly brainstorming sessions, encouraged cross-team projects, and made sure everyone's contributions were recognized. For the first time, it felt like we were all pulling in the same direction. But success brought new challenges. As the project gained momentum and the CEO's trust in me grew, I found myself under a new kind of scrutiny. Some colleagues resented my rise, whispering that I'd only gotten ahead because of Vanessa's downfall. Others tried to cozy up, hoping to ride my coattails. I learned quickly that leadership wasn't just about doing the work. It was about navigating egos, managing expectations, and staying true to my values, even when it would have been easier to play politics. I refused to let the negativity get to me. Instead, I focused on building a team I could trust. I promoted people who had shown integrity and grit, regardless of how long they'd been at the company or how well they played the game. I mentored junior staff, sharing not just my successes, but also my mistakes, hoping they'd learn from both. I made it clear that in my team, credit would always go where it was due. The CEO continued to support me, giving me more responsibility and a seat at the table for major decisions. He asked for my input on everything, from hiring to strategy, and he listened when I spoke, even when I disagreed with him. That respect was hard-won, and I never took it for granted. One day, I was invited to present our project's results to the board. It was a high-stakes meeting, and I knew the company's future, and my own, could hinge on how it went. I spent days preparing, anticipating every question, every challenge. When the day came, I walked into the boardroom with my head high, determined to let my work speak for itself. The presentation went better than I could have hoped. The board was impressed, not just by the numbers, but by the way the team had come together. They asked about our process, our culture, and how we'd managed to turn things around so quickly. I told them the truth. It wasn't about one person or one idea. It was about building trust, valuing every voice, and refusing to let ego get in the way of progress. After the meeting, the board chair pulled me aside. "You've changed the way we think about leadership here, Maya. Keep going." That night, I celebrated with my team. We toasted to our success, to the journey we'd taken, and to the future we were building together. I looked around the room, seeing not just colleagues, but friends. People who had stood by me when things were tough, who had believed in me when I doubted myself. But even as I celebrated, I knew the story wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new rivals, and new tests of character. But I was ready. I'd face betrayal, humiliation, and doubt, and I'd come out stronger on the other side. As I walked home under the city lights, I thought about Vanessa. I wondered if she'd learned anything from what had happened, if she regretted the choices she'd made. Part of me hoped she had, but a bigger part of me was just grateful for the lesson. She'd taught me that real power doesn't come from stealing someone else's spotlight. It comes from building your own and inviting others to shine with you. The months that followed were some of the most rewarding and challenging of my career. With the board's support and the CEO's trust, I was given the freedom to shape not just our project, but the company's culture. I launched new initiatives to encourage innovation, set up mentorship programs, and created open forums where anyone could pitch ideas, no matter their title. The energy in the office was different now, more creative, more collaborative, and more alive. But I never forgot how quickly things could change. I kept my guard up, stayed humble, and made sure to keep learning. I reached out to other leaders in the industry, seeking advice and sharing my own story.
I wanted to make sure that what happened to me and to so many others wouldn't happen again. I spoke at conferences, wrote articles about integrity in the workplace, and became a resource for anyone who felt overlooked or betrayed. One afternoon, I received an email from Vanessa. It was short, almost awkward, but sincere. She apologized for what she'd done, admitting that ambition had clouded her judgment. She said she'd learned a hard lesson and was working to rebuild her reputation in her new role. I sat with her words for a long time, feeling a mix of closure and compassion. I replied, wishing her well and hoping she'd find her own way to lead with honesty. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before hitting send. A part of me wanted to remind her of the nights I lost sleep, the doubt she seeded, and the humiliation of being invisible while she stood in my place. But I let it go. In the end, real power wasn't proving her wrong. It was proving myself right, and knowing I could extend a hand even to someone who once tried to cut me down. As the company continued to grow, so did my own sense of purpose. I was promoted again, this time to vice president, and given a seat at the executive table. The CEO introduced me at my first leadership retreat as the person who reminded us all what real leadership looks like. I felt a surge of pride, not just for myself, but for everyone who had helped me along the way. Looking back, I realized that Vanessa's betrayal had been a turning point. It forced me to find my voice, to fight for what was right, and to prove that integrity could win in the end. The greatest revenge wasn't watching her downfall. That satisfaction fades fast. The real victory is building something so strong, so undeniable, that no one can question where you belong. Rising so high that even your rivals have no choice but to look up and see the truth you've been living all along.